This movie is fucking insane. Today I'm going to tell you about a movie that is, well, absolutely batshit crazy. It's a movie, I'll tell you that. It is a masterpiece of terrible movie, based off of an extremely obscure book series, that no one has ever heard of. Gee, you've probably never heard of this movie series either. This movie is called Once Upon a Crime, and it is a Netflix movie that came out last year. And it is probably like the best movie that ever came out. It's it's the best terrible movie you will ever watch, which is why I'm doing a video on it. Um, anyway, this movie follows Little Riding Hood, full name Hannon, and she has to solve a murder involving Cinderella. And which culminates in the most crazy plot twist I have ever seen and did not see coming at all, with chaotic visuals that don't make any sense. We first meet Little Riding Hood. Stop lying! That is not your fucking name. She's just a traveler, just passing by this kingdom. When she meets Barbara. Barbara is a dark witch who insists that she needs new shoes because her shoes are ugly. So she gives her new shoes, or at least she tries. She actually just covers them in dirt. Anyway, Barbara explains that that everybody in this kingdom has to be pretty because the king hates ugly people, and shuns women who are not pretty. But surely that won't come on at all. Barbara um covers her shoes in dirt because she's bad at shoe magic. Basically, she can do every single other good fairy godmother thing, like changing dresses and hair, but shoes is something she can't do. This is somehow relevant to the plot. Red ends up losing her shoes in a river trying to clean them up, and Barbara does not help. So Red follows her shoes and ends up finding a raggedy bitch who is wearing them. She is burying something, and Red asks, and when Red asks, she said that she's burying a bird that her stepsister killed. Stepsister. Yep, that is right, people. She is Cinderella. This raggedy bitch who just stole Red's shoes is Cinderella. Red has this weird flashback thingy thing where she like zooms in on different parts of Cinderella and then she psychoanalyzes her. I'm gonna play it for you so you understand how confusing this is to me. This happens multiple times during the movie. I'm not gonna point out everyone because I don't understand what the point is because they don't actually really seem to have a point. Red asks for her shoes back, and Cinderella relents about how ugly she is, and how there's a ball, and all of the girls in the entire kingdom are going to it, but she can't because she's ugly. And we get the flashback of her sisters telling her that she's ugly and can't go to the ball, which is why the bird died. And my friend pointed out something to me. They're not exactly being that mean. She is ugly. What if she got murdered? Anyway, Red decides that she'll do something nice for once and calls Barbara over to give them new outfits and hair. And oh my god, Cinderella's not ugly anymore. But as you remember, it's not into shoe magic. Cinderella doesn't have pretty shoes. So we meet Helga. Is another witch who is a lot cuter and softer than Barbara is, and she's like a white witch, the white witch and the black witch. I don't know why this is a thing. There are two witches for a reason. Telka can do shoe magic, and she gives both of them new shoes, including Cinderella's shoes, which are beautifully crafted crystal shoes, crystal heels. And Barbara makes them a carriage, horse, and a coachman. I'm gonna put him on the screen for you. This is Paul. He is a rat. And I'm afraid. He's beautiful, but unfortunately, Barbara's magic only lasts for 12 hours, so Paul will only last 12 hours. So sad. Anyway, that night, the two of them are off to the ball, and Talca. However, Talca's magic does last longer. So, Talca's shoes will last longer than everything else will. And the two of them are off to the ball. And let me just show you this scene with Paul because I'm scared. Paul is terrifying, and I'm afraid, and don't look at me like that! Fun! Anyway, the two of them are off to the ball. Someone jumps in front of the carriage. And Paul does not stop. Because Paul cannot drive, and Paul murders a man. The three of them panic, and Red says they should turn themselves in because it was an accident and they didn't actually kill him. But Cinderella brushes her off and says they can't do that and that she doesn't want to. So they leave him there. Yep, yep, yep. Anyway, Red and Cinderella are off onto the boat, and they get let in because they're pretty. Then we enter the ball. First, well, obviously they tell Paul to stay outside. He doesn't do that. But we meet the Cinderella's stepmother for the first time, and one of her stepsisters. The other one is missing. The prince even mentions it to the king, but the king brushes him off. And now the king. Remember when I told you that he hated ugly people, right? So surely he's like the most handsome person in the entire world. I mean, he sure thinks he is. Here he is. And look at his staff. That's his face. There's no good reason to have your face on your staff. Well, we're gonna move on. Anyway. Uh, oh my god. Anyway, his son is quite beautiful. Although his name is Gilbert. And that hair is not it. Anyway, Prince does not want to be there. But everybody else wants to dance with him because it's like a thing going on. He's getting new, a new wife, I guess. Side note, Margot, the stepsister that is present here, that is here, has short hair now. And her mother and Cinderella both mention how this is very strange and out of the ordinary and new. This will come up later. Anyway, the prince chooses to dance with Cinderella because she's there and he doesn't care. But then someone comes in and announces they found a dead body. The dead body of Hans the hairdresser. And yes, this is the man that Paul ran over. And what do the girls do? Let's have some little trivia here. I want you to comment down your answers in the description into the comment section. A. Admit that they hit him with a carriage on accident. B. Attempt to escape. C. Nothing. I'll give you 3 seconds. The answer is C. They do absolutely nothing. They just stand there and listen. It doesn't matter, Sid, because turns out they didn't kill him. Paul was dead before he hit the carriage. Dun dun dun! So there's another murderer, and it's not the girls. Or is it? He died beforehand. And they found in his room a bunch of hair. So they took the girls who had short hair now, including Margot, and I think it's like 4 princesses that have their hair cut off, and they get like all of the little ponytails of hair that were cut off of these girls. The girls explain that they in quotation marks, let him cut their hair when he mentioned that the prince loved girls with short hair. And Margot shakes her tits at him and asks if he likes her hair. This happens multiple times. Anyway, before we move on, Anyway, Paul comes in at one point and steals cheese. Just as the assistant mentions that there was cheese at the scene of the crime. It wasn't Paul. Paul's just eating cheese, and he leaves and steals alcohol. I don't trust a drunk rat. Anyway, Red interjects and asks questions that lead to Margot explaining that she heard the prince and Hans arguing in his room after the hair appointment. And then the prince admits that Hans had blackmail on him. And that Hans knows that the prince had stolen and destroyed the king's crown a year prior. But this only came up because the prince found a certain bunch of hair in Hans's bag. A hair belonging to his girlfriend who went missing last year. A servant who he intended to marry. But after she disappeared, he blamed his father, and that is why he destroyed the crown. The king says that he didn't care that he was going to marry a peasant, and then promptly arrests his own son. Because they have probable cause to believe that the prince has killed Hans. But then, the woman who had attempted to get into the castle earlier, I think I showed that clip, I might not have put that in post, me, snuck inside and has stuck inside for the sole purpose of giving an alibi to the prince. It obviously isn't her only reason for being here. I think she just wants to see him, but like, she gives him an alibi and then leaves. And he was up on a hill during the murder, and she knows this because she had been watching him the entire time. The prince is left off the hook, and everyone is allowed to go home because they don't believe that she did it. They don't believe that anyone did it. Anyway, Barbara's magic wears off in the forest while the two of them are going home, and Paul is turned back into a mouse. He'll be missed. He even expresses how much he loved being a human. You'll be missed, good sir. Cinderella goes home, and Red goes off into the woods that morning and finds Anne, who is running from something. Why is she running? Well, Red sits her down and eats with Anne, and Anne explains that she murdered Hans. Or at least she thinks she did. She says that she received a letter from Hans to come and get her hair done. He says she walked into the room, was hit over the head twice, and when she woke up, she had a scissor sharpener in her hand. And Hans was dead on the ground. So naturally, Anne assumed that she was the one who murdered him. She then disposes of the body by pushing her into the street. Red turns her in immediately, and but tells the assistant that she doesn't actually think that she'd killed him. So, she could kind of mention that the assistant keeps Red Sensei, Master, Red, throughout the entire movie after her first introduction. She's earned all of his respect. I don't know what she did to deserve it. Bob, what do you think she did to deserve it? Thank you. Anyway, he takes her to the hairdresser's house, and in the closet she finds a lot of those hairs. That's just hair tied up for each girl that he has cut the hair off of, and there is a ton of blood on the ground, and she finds the cleft of a crystal heel, and she has determined exactly who killed Hans. Then we see Cinderella in her yard, and the prince arrives and asks each of the stepsisters to put their shoe in the heel. And Cinderella's fits. Of course it does. And she is promptly arrested. Red comes out and explains that exactly how she knows that Cinderella was the one who murdered Hans. Red believes that Hans had come to her saying how pretty her hair was. But before that, how pretty her hair was, and so Cinderella had come to get her hair done because she was desperate for validation. But before that, she had lost her shoes in the river, and so Telka gave her new shoes because her ones were ruined. Crystal heals. Hans would then try to cut her hair, but she would kill him instead, hitting him with her heel. He would then write the letter to Anne and then knock her out when she came into the room, knocking her out a second time when she woke up, and put a weapon into her hand, the sharpener of the scissors. And then she would leave, and she would leave and bury her heels into the ground with the dead bird. And that is when she met Red. When Cinderella asks how Telka didn't recognize her, Red brings Telka and Barbara on as witnesses. Telka says that she didn't recognize her because she was much prettier than before, and Barbara says that her magic masks people so Telka didn't recognize her because Barbara had already done her magic. And Barbara did not recognize her because she hadn't met her at all before. So she didn't know who she was at all. This is also a perfect time to mention that Red keeps calling Telka Miss Telka, and Barbara just Barbara. And Barbara is really jealous about this, and at this point just yells at Red that is disrespectful, and then leaves. And Cinderella finally admits that she did it and is taken away. But the prince has one thing left to do. He meets his girlfriend. The girl who has been trying to get into the castle is his girlfriend. Poor young girl who was a peasant. The girl who had been turned away at the door many times. Girl who the girl who gave him the alibi. The girl who had been watching him. Turns out that this is his girlfriend, and that Hans had attempted to cut her hair off too, and he succeeded. But while she struggled, he accidentally cut her face, leaving a nasty scar that she decided made her not pretty anymore. So she left, meaning that it actually didn't have anything to do with the king at all. And in the end, the prince marries her anyway, and they think Red, and Red leaves. And that's how the movie ends. But of course, this is based on a trilogy, and we get a little teaser for a sequel, and I want the sequel so bad. And let's go into why I think that this movie is pretty bad. The reason why I believe that this twist came out of nowhere is because that it did. Red says that she was suspicious of Cinderella the entire movie, but I didn't see anything that would be off about her. The only time that I actually thought that she was a little suspicious is when she didn't want to turn in Hans, which is weird that they didn't want to turn in a dead body. But I don't know, maybe she just didn't want to get in trouble, and she was already on thin ice. She's already on thin ice, so she didn't want to murder somebody again. But Cindy wasn't really suspicious at all, and I actually don't understand the logic that led Red to the decision. I feel like it would have been a lot more useful if we'd actually seen Red go back to the little grave that she had dug, digging it up, and then finding the shoes were underneath, rather than having that just explained to us. I feel like it'd been better if we had seen that. But maybe they ran out of time. Maybe they had done that scene and they ran out of time. I don't know. And also, Red's little superpower was never explained. I don't know what it is. Final thoughts! I didn't expect the plot twist at all, and me and my friend were both watching it. We were both terribly confused the entire time, and we decided this is our favorite type of movie. It is the greatest movie of all time. This movie is objectively bad, and I still don't understand her detective powers at all, or why her full name is Little Red Riding Hood. But also, this is a Japanese movie that takes place in England and has historical accurate costuming. It's beautiful. They have historically accurate costumes that kind of has in like the male era between hoop skirts and big rump skirts. So you see both of those, and all of the hairstyles seem pretty accurate too, except for the short ones and the princes, because women didn't have very much short hair back then, and I don't mind. And boys didn't have really long hair back then, so he's there. Um, but they fit with like Victorian fashion, just in about two different eras. Like in the Switch during an era. And I'm wondering if all of the budget went to the costume department, and that's why the writing is so bad. Anyway, also the garden that they filmed this in is also gorgeous. All of the sets, like the castle and everything, is beautiful. Although Paul, those are the only complaints that I have. Final rating! I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10 because I did enjoy the movie. I would watch it again, but in a this movie is so bad that it's good. And I also really want to see the sequels to see if they can improve on the concept. And I also just know what are the weird mysteries Red gets herself into. Like, the next book in the series is about the Little Mermaid. So I don't know what that one's about because I haven't read the book, but I want to know what it is. I know the movie is a masterpiece, and it's on Netflix, so you should go watch it and make them make a sequel. And so now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to have to bury the evidence of my crime.